Our railcar unloader is built on a single frame, even though it's a dual blower system. We do this in order to better nest the components and get a smaller footprint so we don't take up as much space at your facility. The dual blowers are also another standard. As I mentioned earlier, we do this in order to better balance and accommodate different applications. We also include safety filters on both the vacuum inlet and the pressure inlet. Both of these are standard maintenance items and are there in order to protect the blowers themselves. Also standard is a vacuum breaker valve, and this is to do what it says, break vacuum. And now when this will actuate is whenever this surge hopper triggers this safety switch. And that will indicate that the vacuum side is outperforming the pressure side. And we will go into more detail about that in some troubleshooting later on. Also standard is our self-contained control system. Now that will normally come with a Siemens PLC platform, although we offer an option for an Allen Bradley PLC. We have our main interface, bunch of lights, bunch of buttons, simple, but gives you the full realm or idea of how this railcar loader is operating and its status. Now with our user interface, we have an emergency stop button, our power indicator telling you that there is power on with the disconnect on. We have our silo selection switch, which standard controls up to 8 silos, but we have the option to go from 9 to 12. And if you want more than 12, it'll be a custom. We have our start button, our general stop button, which will actually, unlike the emergency stop, will allow the vacuum to go into vacuum brake, stop loading material, empty out the railcar cyclone, and purge the line all the way out to the silo. We'll also have indicators for what is operating when the unit is on. So we have our vacuum pump light, so the vacuum side of the unit is running. We have our pressure blower light, which tells us the pressure unit is still operating. And then we have our feeder light, which is indicating that our airlock feeder is still operating. When we go into, let's say, a regular stop sequence, or when a low vacuum alarm is triggered, which would be an option for this unit, it will go into a purge cycle. And when the unit is in purge, this indicator will illuminate. We also have a horn silence button for whenever the alarm goes off, and we actually have a physical mounted high decibel alarm to indicate any situation with the unit. We also have a manual vacuum test button, so it's a momentary switch. So if you have to validate that the vacuum side of the system is working correctly, pressure side of the system is working correctly, proper rotation of the motors, you'll be able to use those two switches. And then we have a manual feeder button. So if you have to make sure that the airlock is operating correctly, or let's say you have a bad wiper seal, or you have material plugging. From there, we have a few other indicators. We have a vacuum motor overload. So if too much strain is put against the motor and you blow a fuse, trip a breaker, that will illuminate and tell you that that is a failure. We have the same thing for the pressure motor, and then we have the same for the airlock feeder, but that would be in a VFD, so it'll just tell you if there's a fault. On all of our units, we have high vacuum and high pressure sensors on the units, and if we ever go beyond standard vacuum operation, or in a situation where the relief valves malfunction or get jammed, allowing for elevated vacuum, these indicators will come on and notify you that we're out of standard operation. The last 8 indicators, which could end up being 12, are your high-level indicators for your silo selection. Whenever a silo is full, this indicator will be lit no matter what silo you're selected or positioned on via this switch. So right now this is indicating that silo 1 is full, but you have room in silo 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 8. I did mention that there's a low vacuum alarm. That is an option for this unit, and that would be another pressure, another vacuum switch, and that would be used to indicate a set value of vacuum, which is actually a settable parameter for this control. What that will do is it'll alert you to whether your rail car is now empty or if you have a vacuum leak, and it allows it to go below the threshold that the user has set. Now I'm talking about a set user input. So you set the value for a low vacuum alarm. Well, there are other set parameters that are able to be adjusted on this unit, usually done at system setup. The way this is done, obviously there is no HMI. You'll actually locally access your PLC through its IP address. Now, that will actually allow you to open up a web page and adjust certain parameters. These parameters also include your purge time, your auto shut-off time. So if you only want this railcar unloader running 8 hours a day, not during off hours, you can actually set it so that the unit cannot be turned on between, let's say, 6 p.m. and 7 a.m. You can also set this up so that you can indicate whether you have your high level indicators, all the silos wired directly back to this control, or to a remote panel that has the same 1 through 8 or 1 through 12 silos. Now that I talked about the standards, I want to talk about some of the options, and as you may recall, I've already mentioned a few of them. Some of the options that are available for this unit include load vacuum alarm, which allows you to have an indication of whether a rail car is empty or if you have a vacuum leak. There's also the option to have multiple railcar cyclones, and that would be very useful in situations where you are worried about material cross-contamination and you have multiple silo runs or railcar runs in order to avoid that cross-contamination. Another option would be auto ID proofing for the silos. So you can actually validate that the selector switch here, when you select, let's say, silo 2, matches with the port that your railcar cyclone is connected to at silo 2. If it is not connected, there is a not ready light here, which is also for any railcar operation. It'll actually not illuminate. If it is correctly selected and hooked up, it will illuminate and allow you to push the start button and you'll start going. We also have packages that allow us to operate these railcar unloaders in high elevation situations. So if your facility is above 3,000 feet above sea level, we actually have the ability to accommodate the performance via reshiving, vacuum adjustment, in order to have the same operation at the higher level that your facility is seated at. We also offer heat exchangers that allow us to drop the pressure exhaust temperature in order to handle more sensitive resins, such as PEs, some that are more likely to angel hair or streamer. We also offer high elevation packages. This allows us to have our RCU be able to operate at your facility's elevation above sea level. So if you're anywhere above 3,000 feet, we're able to accommodate by doing a simple reshiving and vacuum relief, pressure relief adjustment. We also offer heat exchangers for the pressure side of our railcar unloaders. These heat exchangers are meant to drop the temperature of the exhaust air from our pressure blower in order to be able to handle more sensitive resins, such as PE, which may have a tendency to angel hair or streamer when introduced to elevated temperatures, especially when it's combined with the friction that it's already experiencing in the plumbing. We talked about the standards, we talked about the options. If you have any additional questions involving the railcar unloader, please feel free to visit our website, contact your local sales representative or our sales department. Thank you and have a great day.